Welcome to today's video. I am very excited. My name is Mano Ramadwa and we continue from where we left in the previous video. And we are going to talk about three groups of people in a school that make a school a very functional school. Basically, what I'm talking about is that these three groups of people are capable of creating and maintaining a good school-based system. Now, you will remember in our previous video, we were talking about a schooling system that actually is created to be able to last for a very long time, producing good results. And that school system can only be maintained and created by the following groups of people. The first group is a progressive leadership. Progressive leadership is what I call leadership that is able to interpret the school's vision and marry it with their own personal vision. Now you enter into a school, every school has a vision because that has been a requirement of the Department of Education from time immemorial. But when that school has a vision, a leader who comes into the school must have his own vision that would actually be able to interpret the school's vision to make it a functional school. Now, this kind of leaders, it's obviously the principal, is obviously the SMT as a whole, the deputy principal and the HODs, including the governors who are the members of the SGB. So these ones must have their own individual visions that would actually be marrying, or that would actually marry the school's vision in order to translate and interpret that vision into a vision of a functional school. The second thing about this progressive leadership is that it has to be an analytical and pattern conscious kind of leadership. Now, analytical in the sense that they need to be able to observe things. They need to be able to observe certain patterns that are taking place within the schooling system, so that in the long run, they are able to find solutions. And these solutions are not just solutions, but it's data-driven solutions. Solutions that are actually derived out of the information or the data, or as a result of the patterns that they have observed. Now, these ones, when they actually do that, it means that some of the data that they have to interpret is the data around appointments. What kind of people are they bringing into this schooling system, so that in the long run they don't have to battle dealing with issues that are unnecessary, whereas the school requires them to be managing the day-to-day activities for it to become functional. So this kind of leadership must also be data driven in terms of their solutions. They also have to be very decisive. And when I talk about being decisive, I'm always reminded of this teaching that I've created from the scratch, called the instinct decision making model. So instinct decision making model is a model they apply, which is based on the instincts of the individual. Now, if we are going into a school, the instincts of a school are always going to be those that are actually driven by what the school has put together as their particular system. So any decision made in that school would be the decision that advances the system of the school, nothing else. So that is the first group, is a progressive leadership. The second group of people would be the committed staff. Now, when you talk about staff that is committed, you don't talk about staff that is unconscious of what the vision of the school is. They need to be conscious of the vision of the school, and they need to be also institution conscious than self-conscious. So whatever they do must not actually be self-saving to them, but it must be saving to the institution. The third thing that they actually have to understand is that the institution is bigger than the individual, because every institution is even bigger than the principal, is even bigger than the governors, the SGB chairperson, and all those others who are assisting him within the schooling system. So those must also make use of the available time in a conscious manner. These are committed people. They make use of the available time in a manner that benefits the institution. You will understand when I'm talking about this is when it is a teacher who is appointed within the school, they must utilize the classroom time to benefit the institution. When it is an HOD, they have to utilize their managerial time in a manner that it advances the progressiveness of the school. So these people must be committed also to achieving the targets they set themselves and the targets that are set by the institution. Because what is an institution without a target? If we have 1,000 learners coming into the system in a particular year, what is our target with these learners? How many learners are we committing to be able not just to push through, but to be able to see them achieving well as they go to the next grade? So these kind of people, the committed staff, whether it is the groundsman, but they have to be committed to the cause of the institution. Whether it's the admin clerks, they have to be committed to the cause of the institution. So each and every person within the school must be part of this committed group of people who would advance the institution much more than advancing themselves. The last group that I'm going to talk about is the accountable workforce. Now you see, when someone is accountable, they are able to tell you exactly what is it that they have done with the time that they have, or with the time that they were allocated to utilize. Those who are accountable, they will be able to tell you that with these kinds of resources, this is what I have done and these are the results that I have achieved. So an accountable person can be a principal who would be able to account for all the time that they have spent in the institution. It can be an HOD who will be accountable for all the teachers in terms of how they have been teaching within that institution. An accountable person would also be a learner who says, I have attended school for 45 days. What am I actually giving to my parents? What am I giving to the institution in terms of the results that I have achieved to demonstrate that I have learned much more? These people who are accountable are people, the workforce, who knows what to do. Because you can be accountable and you don't know what to do. So if you are an HOD, you must definitely know what it is that you have to do. If you're a teacher, you must know exactly what it is that you have to do. And an admin clerk, the same. So accountable people are knowledgeable people in terms of what it is they have to do within the institution. This kind of workforce is the workforce that is time conscious. They know that time is money. They know that whatever tasks or activities that they have to complete, it's equivalent to money. So they are time conscious. Whatever they do, there's a sense of agency with what they do. So they don't go into class as teachers, and instead of advancing the accounting, the life sciences, the mathematics, then they are talking about something else that is outside of the content that they have to teach. Because remember, the annual teaching plan allocates exactly the amount of content that has to be taught, perhaps in 7 days or in 5 days, depending on how structured it can be. But those people who are accountable, they will be able to tell you and prove to you that on Monday this is what I did, on Tuesday this is what I did, on Wednesday this is what I did. And in that way, they actually become accountable. The accountable workforce become the ambassadors of the kind of responsibilities they have. They become the ambassadors. They can talk about their responsibilities without any worries. And I'm talking about an HOD who would go on to his teachers and be able to make them realize that as an HOD, this is what his responsibility is. A teacher would be able to say, this is my responsibility. So they become accountable ambassadors of what they do. They don't just become ambassadors of their responsibilities, but they become loyal to the cause of the institution. Now, if we set ourselves a target as an institution and say, this year in 2023, we want to achieve to the maximum of 100% or at most 98, between 98 and 100%, an accountable workforce will be able to come back and say, this is what we have done before the examinations come into play. This is what we have done in the past 10 months. And when the results come, they will be able to say, this is what we have achieved for the 10 months of teaching that we embarked on. And even if things do not work out, they will be able to account and say, we have failed in X and Y, and we believe the reasons are the following. But they will not be finding reasons to blame somebody else and start blaming the learners for lack of commitment, starting to blame the parents for lack of support. They will be able to say, yes, I taught this accounting, but I do not think I taught the balance sheet well, because my children were all complaining about the balance sheet. The balance sheet has nothing to do with the school principal. The balance sheet has nothing to do with the parents and the support. It is a content-based kind of situation which they have to take full accountability for, between themselves and the learner, of course. This workforce is the workforce that is not afraid to account for the time that they have spent. This kind of workforce is a workforce that is also empathetic to the cause of the institution, but also empathetic to the future of the learners themselves. Because what is a teacher without empathy and empathy for the learners? Because the learners are here to be taught and to be prepared for their future. So if such kind of workforce is not empathetic to the future of the learners and to the future of the country, because these learners are the future of the country themselves. So it's important to understand that this kind of group is extremely important, because they understand the end goal, but they also understand that if they do not actually become accountable, they are letting down the community itself. So when you look around the community and you see a lot of failures, you can see that there is a group within the school that exists within that community that did not become accountable, and who did not find the cause of the learners and the cause of the community more important than their own cause. These three groups will definitely be in a better position to find themselves creating a functional school-based system. With this group, you are rest assured that you will have a functional school-based system that will be able to live over ages, regardless of which teacher comes into the school, which learner comes into the school, and which manager comes into the school. Because the system itself would be the system that directs them in terms of what it is they have to do. Thank you very much for tuning into this one, and I'm sure you would enjoy the rest of our videos that are actually going to come after this. Next video, I believe we would actually be breaking down the system itself. What makes a school-based functional system? Thank you very much. Enjoy, and God bless.